Thank y'all for coming. My name is Chris Lane, and Thomas is going to help me with presenting you guys how to use Google Drive to drive learning in our classrooms. I'm going to show you some specific examples of things that we do in our classrooms. Some of the benefits of using Google Drive is student work's kept, and it can be a growing portfolio all through school. So they can keep what they did in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, and it'll go with them through high school. So they can have those portfolio items there throughout their school career. It can be easily accessed by other students, teachers, anyone that has access to logging into a Google account. And we all have those with our school email addresses. They can use their iPads, they could use it on a desktop computer at home, a laptop, a cell phone, anything. So they've got a variety of methods of accessing all those materials on their drive. Also, it's not really keeping learning to in your classroom and face-to-face. We can have students working together on a project or something while they're not necessarily in the same room as each other. It can be something they work on at night and share information back and forth. And it's an easy way to help out kids with missing work too when they're out. They'll know I'll just go here, look in this folder, that's where my assignments are at. So they can just look in there and see what they're missing. And we're going to walk you through how to set up Google Drive, because I know there's some of us in here who are new to it. I'm looking through you, not to you, Mr. Shealy. And if you get stuck or confused at any point and you run out of time during this session, we can help you out at any point. And I'm sure if you're from the high school, there's some people here that can help you guys out as well. What we do is we have a master folder that we share with all of our students, and we just call it, I call it Lane SS All Course. So that's all of my social studies materials in one folder that all of my students have access to. What I do with that folder is I share it with each of my students, and I'm going to walk you through how to do that in just a few minutes. The students also create a folder that they share with us as a teacher, so we can see the work that they're doing either in class that day. We can pull up towards the end of class and say, this right here is an example of what it should look like. Or say, share what you've done today. And the students can get up here and show us what they have learned and what they've done during the day. And the students will have daily notes in our class that they do up there, but they share it with us so we can edit it, so we can go in and add comments and things like that. Our folders for our classes, though, they can only view, so they can't make changes and mess up all the stuff we've been working on setting up for them for their classes. All right, we took some screenshots to help you guys visualize what it looks like when you're setting up a folder. When it says you're sharing a master folder with assignments and criteria of success and just anything you want your students to have instead of passing out individual papers to everybody. When you go to Drive, you're going to click on Create Folder, and it should be up here in the red where it says New. You click New and then Create a new folder. And then you're going to name it whatever you want it named, of course. It could be for a specific class. It could be for all of your classes. You could break it up by first period, second period, however you want to. You're going to click on the share icon. It looks like the person's silhouette with the plus sign on it. And if you click on Advanced, you can adjust the settings where they can edit or can only view a folder. And if you're sharing something with students, I'd just do view because, yes ma'am.
Drive.
Yes ma'am.
Google
Drive.
Are from computer.
Yeah, we're not doing this right now.
But you ain't Google Drive.
Yes ma'am, Google Drive.
Yeah.
If you're on your iPad to create a new folder, you'll click on the red plus in the bottom right. It's a little different than it is on a laptop.
The process works the same though.
It just looks different.
I'll ask you something, Steve, right start, how do you get Google Drive?
Do you have the Drive app downloaded?
I have
Yeah.
no clue.
You have to have the app.
It's self-service.
App Store.
And self-service, all your Google Suite products are in there.
You just type in
And
Google
we
Drive.
actually, if you do have Google Drive, Mr. Lane sent this out yesterday and shared this with you. So you can see all of this and the resources we use today are shared in a folder that you should have gotten yesterday afternoon. And when we're doing this in our class, the first couple weeks that we're doing it,
it's a struggle with the students, just like it was for us when we were learning it 2 years ago when we were starting out. I mean, we were seriously on the struggle bus. We were driving the struggle bus. But it's just a process you've got to go through with your students. And when you do it every day, they get the hang of it. After a couple weeks, all you have to do is say, this is what we're doing today. Go get your materials off of my folder. And the kids know how to do it. As frustrating as it's going to be the first couple weeks you're doing it with someone if they haven't done it before, it pays off in the end.
So if I make my folders and I go back and change the name if I need to?
You can rename a folder.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll get back to
All right.
I've done that 3 times sitting here.
What's it do?
Go back to reinstall.
You might have to have an update on your iPad. Because there were several things I tried to install, and I had to update my iPad before it would work. So go to your settings.
Self-service, you have all your
Install now. Yep, you've got to have an update. That's why. And then do agree and install that. And I can help you out. Are you going to be here tomorrow at the work day?
No.
I can help you out whenever then. I'm setting it up if you need to.
It would be the same thing that you logged in your computer.
How often do you need to update this iPad? I mean,
It seems like every week here lately.
Yeah. And every time I update it, it's like it went slower and slower.
And in your drive, you can share anything you want in those folders. You can have pictures, you can have videos, you can have links to websites. Anything you want your kids to see, you can drop into Google Drive for them to have access to.
Okay, I don't know what my personal one is for iTunes, because I don't use iTunes.
So you must have created that.
When we got it, the person who
Right.
got it for me did.
Now, as teachers, we'll have our master folder that we put all of our information in, and the students will also have their own. For example, my kids, they've got, if they're in my first core class, they call it their first and last name, core 1, so they know that's stuff for my class. Or I let them call it their first and last name, social studies, just so they know it's for my individual class. In that folder that they create, they're going to click on the same thing, go to the access settings, and they're going to be sure they have set it to edit when they share it with us. That way we can see any information they put in that folder. And we can go in, add comments, take things out if we need to. Because you know they're kids, they're going to put some stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there at times. And then to set it up, how myself and Mr. Lofton did, we created a separate folder for each of our 4 classes and dropped our student folders in there. So it's just like a filing cabinet. So you got 4 drawers on a filing cabinet. Your first one's for your first class, second one for your second class, and we just drop those folders in there. Each student created their own individual folder for their work. So it's just like a folder you can hold in your hand. And they're going to share that with us so we can see everything that's in it. And then we created folders for each class. So my core 1, and then I'm going to put all the students that are in my core 1 in that folder.
Okay, so the students just can't share, I know they share it with you, but they can't put it in that folder themselves?
They just share it with me and I put it in the folder.
And you put it in the folder, okay.
If you gave them access to that folder, and they could delete another student's work.
Okay.
That's where the permissions are important, because as a teacher in a master folder, you only want to have the edit permissions. You give them the can view option. The only person who's going to have edit options on your folders is you.
All right, and now since we are using iPads, you know there's a lot of time that can be spent off task. Well, we have some more things coming in to help us out with that in the future. But there's a way to help focus the students using this technology and make things easy for them to find. So what we'd like to do in our class is we create our notes for class using Google Slides. And it's basically like PowerPoint, but it's within the Google Drive suite. We add all of our notes in there, all of our resources, everything we need is within there. It's going to contain links to outside sites. So if we're doing a reading selection, we'll just drop a link in that. So they click on it. It'll open up the link in a web browser directly to it. They're not going on Google searching for a website, trying to type it in a toolbar where they're typing in a 1 instead of an L because they can't tell what it is. It just makes it a lot simpler and it saves a lot of time in class. Our presentation can either be teacher-led, we can get up here and lecture for a few minutes and go through it with them step by step, or we can just have the simple directions up on the slides. They just read through it themselves and walk themselves through it, just depending on our class. Now we're going to create those slides for the students to show them to do that within your folder that you just created. For example, my Lane SS All Course. I'll click on New or Create, depends on if you're using your iPad or your laptop. Or click on the little red plus sign on iPad. And then you'll see the Google Slides option. So if you tap on that, that should bring up the Google Slides program. If you don't have the option,
You can't keep them separated.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. If when you pull it up, you can't make any changes, don't you have to download it? Was that only when you're...
If you can't make any changes from Drive, what the thing is, Drive will just allow you to view
You can
it,
only
okay?
view it.
You have, because the iPads, you have to have slides to edit that. But you can view anything in Drive. So if you look at the menu, I'm pointing at it here with the cursor. Docs, sheets, and slides. Now, if I'm on my computer, I can instantly click it and go directly to that subpage. But because of the way the iPads work, it's going to redirect you to download the app. So you'll have to download that to gain access to your teacher-created and student-created materials. Okay? So I suggest as a teacher, run it through the computer. But on the student side of it, you do need to be familiar with what students will encounter, so when they ask you questions, you know things like a red new button for us on the computer equals the red plus sign to add a new file or folder for them.
And in order for them to go in and type on their student notes, they're going to have that Google Slides app on their iPads. Otherwise, they can only view. They can't make any changes. And the way we format our presentations, we include titles for the topics that we're doing each day. For example, if we're focusing on geographic features, we're going to have geographic features at the top of each slide. So they're plastered in our students' minds. They see it, every single thing we're doing that day. They know the focus is geographic features.
This is an example we showed.
And here's an example of actually what we've just started working on last week and this week we're working on. We're working on ancient Greece. So, very first thing we do a title slide, and then we tell them performance. This is what your end goal is going to be. This is what we're working for this entire unit. We have a unit essential question that goes along with the performance event. And then we have a vocabulary slide where they go in and add key vocabulary that we do each day. So right now, of course, there's only one word. Well, our students probably have about 2 or 3 by now. But towards the end of the unit, you'll see all of the vocabulary we use throughout ancient Greece. Also, one good thing about using the Google Slides and Google Drive, by adding our links in, we can determine where our students are going to go. They're not searching Google for Greek gods and goddesses and pulling up pictures that they don't need to be looking at. So it'll save us as teachers from having to deal with those moments, which are always fun. And also limit time off task trying to find those sites. If we already have the information for them, all we have to do is click, pull it up. They can read the information, get what they need for their assignment or their activity for the day. And here's an example of that. So we just said simply click here to read and learn more about democracy in Athens. Or click on the link. It'll take us directly to a reading selection about democracy in Athens. And this is actually one we compiled from another website. So this is an example of how you can do something other than just a website. This is a PDF file. So like I was mentioning very earlier in the session that you can use almost any kind of source you want to in Google Drive to share with your students, videos, pictures. If you have a handout that you used to hand out, you could scan it on the copy machine, upload it as a PDF. Saves a lot of paper, saves a lot of time for you. Mr. Lofton also added a video on how to copy slides from the teacher, whatever you have for them to get. He created a video on how to copy it so they could have it for their own to make changes.
And that's saved in the folder that's shared with you. If you go through this presentation and click on the word here, it'll start playing that video immediately. Due to time, we're not going to watch that now.
Now, here's another example of linking things within Google Drive. It's just going to a Discovery Education video.
And tell them about the blocks we have for our questions.
Oh, we also do, whenever we have a video link or a link to a picture or something that the kids are examining, we like to add a quick little box with just a question, just to try to evaluate what they learned from it, even if it's something that only take a minute for them to answer, just to try to access some thinking from them, so we know they are paying attention. They did get something out of that video clip or that picture we looked at or that paragraph, whatever our source was. Also, another big thing as teachers, we know everybody's telling us about data, comparing data with other teachers. Google Drive can make that very, 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 very simple. We can track the data by using a Google form. The startup can be a little bit aggravating, getting everything set up, but once you get it set up and get it started, it's so easy. Myself and Mr. Lofton started it last year. It took us forever to get the hang of it. We couldn't figure out everything to do. It was a struggle, but once we did, all we have to do is go in now, make a few clicks, and we can see how each one of our students did on each individual test question. We can get percentages on who chose A, who chose B, who chose C. We can compare that with each other. So I'll know which standard I did well on teaching, which one I didn't do so well on. What you'll need to do that, though, is you have to add a Flubaroo add-on on Google Sheets. And it's basically like an easy grader. You'll click on it, it'll say grade assignment. It'll go through, grade it for you, turn it in, and then you can go and look at individual data. And we put some examples of what the data looks like as well.
You want to see that first?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, here's question 1 on a test from last year. We can tell 39 of our students chose A, 27 chose B, 10 chose C, and 20 chose D. So this one only 40% got correct on this standard for this particular question. For number 2, 44.8% of our kids got that one correct on that particular standard. So we can understand that, all right, about half of our kids understand those standards. So we do need to go back, reteach it to the other half, figure out a different way. And then there's also the pretty downside. When you look and you can tell that 83% of your kids got a question wrong. So we know that was definitely on us as a teacher. We didn't do something right. Because there's no way if we taught it right, 83% of our kids would get it wrong. And that's something we could compare with each other. Because these could have been the exact same question. Well, I had it where 83% of the kids got wrong. On the other hand, Mr. Lofton could have had it where he had 50 get it correct. Can you go back to, yeah. All right, for the students, when they submit their answers on the Google form, we can view their answers in that visual format on that graph. All you would have to do after you have the Flubaroo add-on is click on Form at your top toolbar, and then go down and click on Show Summary of Responses. And remember, this right here will be available to you in this folder. You can look back. And that's when it'll pull up the graph format that you can look at and actually see a visual representation of the data. What questions do you have? Yeah. You like that one, Mr. Whitson? I like that one. I know we're taking a lot of them towards the beginning. Just getting the initial setup, I understand it can be very overwhelming. It's a lot. We felt the same way when we started. But we didn't try to do too much at once. We took one thing on at a time. Once we finally mastered something, that's when we moved on and tried to add something else to it. So the first thing I would do if you're starting out is just work on creating a folder. Just share a simple picture or a link to a website with the kids. Just try to get into it so you can make sure your kids can have access to what you want them to. After you're sure and you feel comfortable with that, move on to the next part. I would just take it one step at a time. Don't try to jump straight into, let me start putting all of my notes on Google Slides, sharing everything with them, and have them submit their test next week online. Just jump into, I'm going to share this website with them today through Google Drive. Then the next time maybe I'm going to share this website and then have them construct a response that I can see through Google Drive. And again, if you have any questions about it, you can see myself from Mr. Lofton and high school folks. I know there's several people out here that use it as well. I know Charlie Howell will be a good person to talk to.
And a lot of times I know people that, when we're getting used to iPads, talk about kids being off task on their iPads. If you get to the point where you're presenting your lessons and sequencing your class day by day through Google Slides to keep them focused on a specific application to house your websites and information, when you use this upcoming program called Casper, which the schools will roll out with soon, it's going to be able to let you take control of the children's iPads and focus them on a specific app. And if you have all your stuff housed in that one app, then you can focus their iPads in the beginning of the core, never have to worry about it until they leave you again, and you know they're not off task.
And I know 100% this works with the kids. My first year teaching, my EVOS was a negative 4 point something. I don't know, it was like past the line. Next year I started trying this. When I got it back, it was positive 4. So I know there was something I changed in my teaching, and this was what I changed. Instead of just pulling out, handing things out and reading them and answering questions like that, this is what I started doing, more interactive stuff with the kids. It works. I don't know what my EVOS is from last year. We haven't got it back yet, but it doesn't, I mean, just in that year difference, I noticed, I mean, you jump from this side, well, from this side to this side. I turned around completely. So it works. Who needs help setting it up? Miss Fleming?
Can't even get it open still.
We just need to get your password figured out. You did get it?
I think I got it figured out.
It's easier on the laptop.
Yeah, it is.
And the cool thing is,
That's what I
we
just wanted
did
to
spend
see.
a lot
Yeah.
of time figuring out some
And
of
when you
this
were
stuff,
saying about
but now that we
having
spend
a
all that time,
folder,
we can make
you just create a folder, you
Yes.
put all of your things in that folder and share it with the students, right?
Yep, and be sure you put, they can only view it, or they
You
can
only
be.
view it.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. They're in there playing with it. Okay, that's what
Because I made a mistake when I had a new kid come in about halfway through last year. I just typed their name real quick, added them, and I wasn't paying attention, and they could edit. And next thing I know, up on the screen, I could see him typing stuff and moving it all around. I was like, hang on, let me change this. And I just went in, found his name, and changed it to Can View, and he couldn't mess anything else up.